Okay, I did this again. I am just so tired of being such an idiot that I start this video and I don't push play. So I'm like a half an hour into it, and guess what? I've done nothing. So I wrote some things down because my mind's always working, and sometimes I do drugs a lot of times just to shut my mind down, you know, certain drugs. But of course I got my trusty crack pipe, you know, always, you know. It's embarrassment sometimes for me, you know, that I managed to go all day long with crack in my hands. You know, I'm not a fast smoker. I don't smoke it up, and I've seen people take what I have here and smoke it up in half an hour. You know, I can make that last, you know, half the day. I have to. I'd be seriously broke if I didn't. But you know, it's like every morning I have my guy, my dealer. He comes over at night and he hides my heroin and some crack for me in the morning. And he calls me about 10:30, or I call him when I get up, and he tells me where it's at. I don't search for it. And I get it about a half a gram of each, or a quarter gram of heroin, a half a gram of crack, and that will usually last me. If I wanted to, you know, it can last me sometimes till 2 or 3 o'clock, maybe longer sometimes, depending on how good it is. And then, you know, I usually think to myself, you know, well, that's it. That's all the money I have for the day. You know, I don't see any way of possibly, you know, any options of getting more. But, you know, it's just every single day, it manages to work its way to the point that I have crack at all times. You know, somebody will come over and want to cook their powder up here, and they'll pay me, or they just don't want to go home, and they'll come over and smoke and sit. You know, some of those people I will have to throw out, like Puff. This one guy, you know, he comes over and he does a hit and he wants to pull his dick out. You know, it's like, that's the last thing I want to see. You know, oh, 20 seconds, 20 seconds. 20 seconds what? Get the fuck out of here. You know, I don't care how much crack you got. Get the hell out of here. You know, I hate that shit. You're a total buzzkill. Last thing I want to do is have somebody throwing their dick in my face. You know, a lot of guys are like that, you know. It's like, that's all they think about when they do crack. It makes them all horned up. Most women, it does the opposite too. Most of the ones I've talked to anyway. And the ones that act like they're horned up, they just do it to try to get the guys going, to give them more or something, you know. I don't even want to get them going. It's the last thing I'd get them going anymore. I'm throwing them out the fucking door, you know. It's pretty bad when you got a pocket full of crack and you're knocking on somebody's door and they're hiding. You know, oh God, don't let them see me. You know, shit. Anyway, that being said, I think a lot, and I always think I'm right most of the time, you know. Yeah. And as I get older, I look in the past and I see how I wasn't very right about a lot of things. Surprisingly, my mother was about a lot of things, you know. I remember I used to hitchhike a lot when I was a teenager, and oh, my mother would just be scared for me. And I remember saying to her, oh, Mom, you know, there's always some old man that would pick me up, you know, and give me a ride, or just any man. And my mom would be afraid that I was going to be murdered and raped and all that. And I remember telling my mom, you know, oh, Mom, I could tell he was a really nice guy. He wasn't creepy. He was really nice. I could tell he wasn't a murderer or a rapist. And I look back at that time in my life, and I realized how right she was, how wrong I was. You can't tell. You know, people are married for 30 years, have kids with someone, and they turn out to be a serial killer. You just don't know anyone, and it's those dorky ones that you think that you could probably beat their ass that are really seem to be the creepiest, you know. And it's just, I'm so shocked that the situations that I walked away from unhurt in my life, that someone out there is watching over me. You know, there absolutely has to be a higher power or something out there that's had my back, that I've never been raped, Oh, one time in my sleep, I passed out at a friend's house, and I know this guy had sex with me in my sleep. I just know it. And, but other than that, I've never been raped. I've put myself in situations that it could have turned out very, very bad. Worse than just being raped, you know. And I'm just so shocked at, when I look back at how lucky I've really been. Or maybe it's not luck. Maybe, like I said, maybe somebody, but why? Why are they looking out for me? You know, at one time I thought maybe because I was supposed to do something great with my life, and well, time's moving on, and that still hasn't yet to happen. You know, I haven't done anything great with my life. All those years in college and all those big ideas and nothing. But then, you know, if you ever saw that movie, It's a Wonderful Life, you know, maybe I have done a lot and I just don't know it. You know, I did have a couple of people that I know that called me up out of the blue one time, this one guy, and he had seen me struggle with my heroin addiction and what I went through, and he had gotten into some kind of car accident or something, and I know he had said his doctor had wanted to put him on some heavy-duty pain medication, and he said he refused it because he remembered my story and what I had been through, and he said that he wanted to thank me because I possibly might have saved his life, and you know, that just really, that right there just gives me, you know, a reason to go on, you know, and it just, I always wanted to have some kind of purpose in this life, you know. I never in a million years, when I was in my early 30s, well, my 20s, I started doing drugs when I was 31, you know. I became an addict at 31, put it that way. I had done little drugs here and there, but not anything like this. I'd never done crack till I was about 31, never did heroin. That all started after that car accident. But anyway, moving on. Yeah, I've lost that train of thought already. You know, that's another fear right there. I'm afraid I'm gonna fucking, you know, I don't have any family but my mom, and obviously I'm probably gonna outlive her, seeing how my luck really is, you know. My luck is that good that, yes, I'll probably outlive my mother. And after she's gone, I don't have anyone. I don't have anyone that would notice that I was having dementia or Alzheimer's and out on Division, which is where our homeless and prostitution and all that, that's our town's area. And there's a lot of people out there right now that have mental illness, and they're out there being pulled into gas station bathrooms and raped, you know, and that's the truth. Here not too long ago, it was on the news that a lady, two guys, somebody seen two guys pick her up right with her wheelchair and took her into some house, and they called the cops. But, you know, I'm sure damage was done before the cops even got there. But that's the sick world we live in, you know, and that's what I foresee, you know, a very, very big possibility for me, since, you know, I partied my life away and I didn't secure any kind of money for my future, my old age. You know, I do know that when my ex-husband dies, I know that I will collect his Social Security, seeing that I probably won't get any of my own, since I didn't work enough. I did, but I didn't work jobs that paid in the government. You know, I did a lot of under-the-table work. I wasn't an exotic dancer, for a better word. You know, I call it a stripper. A stripper's a stripper. But I did that for 11 years. No prostitution, believe it or not. One time, I gotta admit, I had a regular customer I had been seeing for quite a while, and he said his fantasy was to pay a girl to have sex with him. This was back probably early 90s. And this is a guy, he was a nice guy, he was decent looking too, and, you know, I had never had ever done any kind of prostitution at that point, and he said he wanted to pay me money to have sex with him, and he would pay me $1,000, and, you know, a lot of money, right, you know, back then especially. And I decided I would do it, and I went. He rented a very nice hotel, and I was with him for 15 minutes, and he gave me $1,000, and at that time I had never done any other prostitution type shit. Not until I ran out of all my hustles. I used to be a big booster for a long time, and then I used to also sell pills. Back when it was a possibility that you could juggle doctors, and you'd have several of them. And I remember used to make about $3,000 in a month in pill sales, and then boosting was lucrative, but I've hustled that out because no matter how good you are at things, you do get caught. And then I got into a situation and I had to make money quick. And I had a friend that was working in a massage parlor. And she said, well, you don't have to have sex with anybody, but you do have to do a hand job or blah, blah, blah. And at that point, I didn't even think I could do that, but I had to do something. And so I went into the parlor and I started doing that. And then after a while, that eventually got to where, right around COVID, I think it got to a point where you had to start having sex or you weren't going to make any money. And I remember the first time I did that and just how sick I felt and how I cried. And every time I did it, it just bothered me. It bothered me so much. Oh, that's not untrue. It wasn't COVID. The COVID was a different thing. This was before COVID, way before COVID, when I had to start working with the massage parlor and the sex and all that crap. I'd say good 10 years or more ago. Anyway, I had to clarify that. I try not to lie on this channel. So anyway, what was I talking about? God, see what I mean? I'm losing my mind. Gosh, that's bad. I can't even record and go back. Let me do this and maybe I can remember. Yeah, right.
That was until recently. Investigators took the DNA of the suspect they collected from Mildred's body in 1985 and made use of genetic genealogy to identify him. In March of 2000,
I think I remember some of it.
They identified him as 61-year-old
I remember.
Richard Curtis.
I was going to say,
he lives in Boynton Beach, Florida.
I don't know what was worse, when it bothered me or when it stopped bothering me. Because it bothered me so much, it felt like it was just eating my soul away. Every time I had to do it, I just got blacker and blacker, if that were even possible. Because when it came to men, I was kind of black already. Being a black-souled person for men, I sure had sex with a lot of them, and not for money. I was just groomed at a young age to think that was how you got men to like you and to feel obligated. And I remember being a younger girl, and this is sick, but I thought if a guy took me to McDonald's and bought me a hamburger, I felt obligated to have sex with him, and that's the truth. It was very easy to talk me into having sex that I didn't want to have. And I guess that can maybe we say is a form of rape, mental rape, I guess. And it took me a while to realize, some things. And that's when I started, realizing that I don't know, I could say I hated the male race, but I didn't. I still wanted their attention. I still needed that validation. I needed men to look at me. I needed men to want me to feel worth something, I guess. And being a pretty girl when I was young, and I had a brain, but it didn't matter because it just didn't matter. And the thing about that is, at least when I was young and cute, they pretended to be interested in what I have to say. They pretended to listen. As you get older and you start losing that cute little girl that you were, they don't even pretend to listen anymore. They don't even care, But I don't care. I just keep talking anyway. I feel sometimes that I have something to say, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't. Maybe it's just all in my head. And who cares, I guess, if I do have something to say, what am I doing with it? You know, I do want to still get that degree. I still want to make a difference in this world. I don't know why it matters to me so much. I guess because I look at things that happen and I get so angry about things. Things really bother me, and I let it consume my life, and I would like to be something like a lobbyist, maybe, is that what it's called? Somebody who could get things changed. And the thing about that is, you know, I could see myself being obsessed. I already am. You know, like things with CPS. I see so many things that I feel are wrong, and I gotta like think, you know, I can't be the only person out there that realizes that what's going on is not right. You know, what's wrong with people? You know, and I get so upset about it, you know, especially when things happen to people that I know. You know, for example, a girl that I know, a woman that I know had her, well, first of all, the father of her 3 children took his life in her garage. He asphyxiated himself and she found his body, and she also found the note that he wrote that told her it was all her fault. And I know that she had 5 years of sobriety and she relapsed. And at that point, she left her kids alone. They were 11, 8, and a baby. She left the 11-year-old in charge, I guess, for 2 or 3 days alone. And her mother found out about it and called CPS, and the cops came and they took her kids away. And after that, she just couldn't seem to get it together to get her kids back. And she lost them to her mother. And I realize now, and she told me, and I'm like, nobody could, you know, be that heartless. You know, your mother doesn't seem like that kind of person, but I guess those kids were getting a lot of money from their father dying, and then plus the adoption subsidies that she would get and everything else. And I watched her use those kids against her, and watched, you know, her get to a point without her kids that she just didn't care anymore. She would have died or killed somebody without hesitation, and those kids were her world. I look at that situation and I realize, you know, this is a person that just needed some help. She just needed some help. And losing her kids wasn't helping. And I thought about this idea of like fostering a whole family, and instead of taking the kids out of the home, unless the kids are in some grave danger, having a social worker that can stay with that family. Instead of you're taking your kids in, they take themselves into your home and help you with some coping skills and things like that, parenting skills, whatever it is that you might need, you know, drug help, whatever, you know, because I do know I've seen people get very hopeless when their kids are taken, you know, and not every situation would apply to, you know. I know that some kids do need to be taken from the home, but I do know that I've seen situations where the kids were put in a lot worse situation once they were taken from the home. Babies are being raped in foster care all the time, and I think it's sick. And I always wanted to work with kids in some way, and me having a felony on my record, which my felony was a drug felony, I am not allowed to work around children, even though that was 20 years ago. And it just really pisses me off because I hear all these things that are happening to kids in foster cares and even in daycare. Here right in my city, some woman or 19-year-old just got convicted of smothering a baby to death in a daycare. Now, she didn't have a felony, you know. And then what about that woman that was putting herself on social media, putting a little boy's penis in her mouth? Okay, she didn't have a felony. Okay, I have a felony. Now, I would never smother a baby or put a little boy's penis in my mouth, but I can't work with kids. See, that makes sense. And now they don't even have you in for an interview. They just do it over the phone. You know, I got called for a job as a behavior technician working with autistic children. And I had a telephone interview, and this woman, they loved me. You know, I said, so what's the next process? Do I have another interview? Do I come in? She said, no, I'm hiring you right now. I love everything that you said. She said, all we got to do is get your background checked. I said, oh, my background. She's like, well, what, do you have anything? I'm like, well, yes. Well, they couldn't hire me. She had to take that away from me, and it was absolutely devastating because that would have been a life changer for me. It really would have. And I am a good worker. When I have a job, I put my everything into it. Yeah, but yet,
it can only be estimated that she was white.
you know, I can't get a job because of my felonies. You know, of course, right now with the drug problem, I wouldn't even attempt to try and work with kids or anybody else for that matter. But I have a lot more morals and integrity than a lot of drug addicts have, and that's the truth. You know, I'm a rarity in the drug world. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people out there that yeah, you'd be surprised. You know, I know a lady that's a crack addict, and she was a school teacher. You know, addiction just does not discriminate. It does not. And I got conflicting, you know, thoughts and things about a lot of things. You know, sometimes it makes me sound like I'm a hypocrite or something, but I'm not. One time I may feel this. I feel like sometimes opposite ends of the spectrum on the same subject, you know, and that used to be confusing for me to feel so different about the same thing at the same time. And how was that possible? And am I crazy? And, you know, anyway, I had started writing some stuff again. You know, I try to put a little bit of, you know, humor into my writing about the world, and I've already been on here for 21, was that 21? Oh, 21 minutes, that's not bad. Okay, let's see, what did I write yesterday? Where's the other paper? I am a very unorganized person right now. Okay, so I was thinking about coming up with a different type of therapy, like drug therapy, because, you know, like I said, I was talking about the medical model and all that, or was that on the first video that I didn't record? You know, the medical model, I think it breeds, you know, victims. You know, it allows a person to say, oh, this isn't my fault, I have a disease. Well, my disease is nothing like your cancer, and I think that's just ludicrous to compare my addiction to your cancer. Okay, whatever, that's my thoughts, my opinions. So I say, if you truly want any kind of change, I can't stress this enough about how important self-awareness is. And not just self-awareness, but, you know, just plain awareness about anything. So, you know, there's so many people out there, not just addicts, you know, people who, all walks of life, they're just clueless about everything around them. You know, and then there's been times when I have asked myself, if it would be better to be like that. And I was like that at one time, just really clueless about myself and about everyone around me and the world around me. And to live in that world that only exists in your own mind and go through life not knowing what a piece of shit you are, or what piece of shit qualities you might have, or piece of shit qualities other people might have, you know, is that such a bad thing? Is it? You know, for me it might have been. You know, I want to be aware. That's my masochistic tendencies, I think. But, you know, in a false, twisted way, and it, you know, you tweak what you want to believe, the bullshit. And if you're truly clueless and don't know you're clueless, then wonder, you know, ask yourself, you know, what's so great about being hit in the face with a big old bag of reality? Everyone out there might hate you, you know, but as far as you know, you're this great person who's liked by most everyone. And if that's the case, you might want to ask yourself, you know, if you really are up for learning all that you know is untrue, that you're not everybody's sweetheart. That knowledge alone, yeah, I'm not prepared for this speech. That knowledge alone. Okay, well, where am I at? I don't know. See, I guess I'm not a very good speech giver. Or I would have been more prepared here, because I don't know where my next page is that I wrote. Oh, that's not good. Because if I was up in front of a bunch of people right now, well, I guess I kind of am. I would be being booed off the stage. Let me see. I'm sorry, everybody. Wow. Maybe it's got to be on the very last piece of paper that I looked at. Yeah, I guess so. Okay, so what did I just say? Let's see. That knowledge alone can be enough to soul shock you into a very dark place. And have you ever heard the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? So, that's all being said. If you're still listening to me, you must have a certain amount of masochistic tendencies in you. Or you still believe it in the biggest lie that's out there. And I'm full of shit. So, a lie that has built layers upon layers upon layers your whole life, and peeling that away, it can be traumatic. I am not saying it isn't. You may still hold on to what you think you know. And this process doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it takes a whole life, your whole life, sometimes until it's too late. And those who say it's never too late, well, their eternal optimism, all I can say is bad news. It can be too late. Life isn't a Hallmark card. Honestly, life really sucks. It does. You know, call me negative. Only positive thoughts. Welcome here, right? Not. You know, these are people who are still holding on to that big lie. So be honest and think about it. For the most part, life does suck. It does. You know, maybe it's got some good moments. It isn't a wonderful thing that's got bad moments. It's usually a shitty thing that's got a few good moments, you know, for most people. And if you don't agree with that, then I do believe that you're still holding on to that lie, you know, that lie. That evening, 21-year-old was seen walking along Junipero. What am I saying now? The next morning, her body. You wouldn't have. You probably wouldn't be watching me and my addiction if life was such a wonderful thing. You know, why do people watch people who are going through bad things in life? You know, why is that? Why do people want to see? And it's not you want to see bad things happen to people, but sometimes it is. Sometimes, you know, people want to see that. You know, I worked in Florida. I used to pick up dead bodies for a living, you know. It was suicides, accidents, and homicides. And we'd pick them right up out of the side of the road. And you know what I'm going to say. You know, people just couldn't get enough of it. Couldn't get enough of it. Drive around back and forth and back and forth just trying to get a look at that, you know. And what is it that's fascinating? Or to tune into somebody on a YouTube channel that's just so fucked up and just people just love to hate on these people, you know? Like that one, I think her name is, I don't know if I'm allowed to say her name, but she eats food and talks about drama and has her drama, and it's just like people just love to hate this woman. And I kind of thought that's what might happen to me if I started doing this. And do I really want to be hated in the nation? You know, I think that I care too much about people's thoughts to be able to deal with that, you know. Some people don't. I do. It's hard for me to even get on and read comments that people have written to me because I'm afraid that I'm going to find something, that somebody's going to say something that's going to really affect me in a bad way. So usually I'll have a friend of mine read them first, and then because I would like to read what people are saying to me and answer everybody, because I do care what other people have to say, as long as it's not negative towards me. You know, I can handle some criticism, but to sit and just to be hating on me, I can't. My ego is too fragile. My mental health is too fragile for that. So, you know, and also, okay, so now where am I on this here little speech? Okay, I might be about done because I didn't finish it. I have not finished it yet. Maybe I never will. That does happen. Okay, so all that being said, if you really want some honest feedback in your life about who you are, don't look within. They always say, oh, you gotta look within yourself. No, don't look within yourself, because they say you are your biggest critic. That's not always true. Yes, you can be a big critic of yourself, but I guarantee that the people out there are going to be worse. You are going to pad your feelings up a little bit. Yes, you are. I don't know who came up with that. You're your own worst critic. No, you're not. Believe me. Being said, that's why I don't want to read comments that people put on here, because, yeah. I know inside myself what criticism I can handle, and I'm not going to give myself any criticism that I can't handle. And most people, I don't know of anybody that will. You know, you're not going to give yourself so much criticism that you can't handle it. Okay? So, if you really want some honest feedback, start asking the people around you to describe you, to honestly describe you. And you'll most likely hear things that'll be hard to hear, but you're gonna get truth. You're gonna get truth. Now you ask people, you know, things about you. Now you start looking for a pattern. How many people are saying this one thing about me? If more than 3 people say it, or 3 people say it, you know, it's probably true. You know, it took me a long time to realize and look and say, maybe it is me. You know, maybe it is me. You know, because there for a long time it was everybody else. And it was such a pattern in my life that, and I'm serious, it took so long to beat that into my head that, you know, it is me. Not maybe it's me anymore, it is me. You know, I am not a victim anymore, and that's good for me. Maybe it isn't good for everybody, but for me it is. Did it change much about the outside sort of things in my life? Not really. Did it change things on the inside of me? Yes, it did. It made me so that I could look at myself in the mirror without hating myself. Now, did it help me get out and get off drugs and go to get a job or anything like that? No, it did not. But maybe that's the beginning of something, I don't know. But it was quite some time that I stopped being a victim and stopped blaming, and not just stopped blaming, but honestly believing it. You know, it's easy to stop blaming other people, but do you really believe it inside? You know what I mean? Or are you just playing along with, you know, the game? You know, fake it till you make it, maybe, you know, but I've done that too. But you know, I truly know that, you know, my issues, you know, most of these issues that I have, they're a direct result from some stupid fucking thing that I've done. You know, I'm not running from my deep-seated anguish about being molested. I'm not, you know, or the pain of it all, or this or that. You know, I'm not. I'm not. And I think most people, if they really look at things, you know, they'll find too that they aren't either. You know, do I use drugs now to numb pain? Yes, I do. But do I do drugs solely? Did I start doing drugs to numb pain? Maybe I did, but it got to a point where it wasn't the case anymore. It got to a point where I did it because I wanted to. I did it because I wanted to. I've gotten off drugs and had some sobriety just to go back to it, and not because I was in pain. You know, that has happened also, but you know, like I said, it's a very colorful thing. It's not just black and white. But it is. That's another thing. It is black and white when you really come down to it. You know, they say, you know, it is stupid to say this tonight. You know, this is how easy it is. It's just don't do it. Just put this down and don't do it ever again. It's that easy. That easy. But it's that hard. That hard too. It's really weird to think like that. That it is so easy for me. That's how easy it is to stop my drug addiction. Just get up tomorrow and don't do any. But that's as hard as it is also. Does that make sense to anybody? I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if it's like it was when I was telling my mother, no, Mom, I can tell he's a nice guy. Am I still clueless? Do I just think I got a handle on shit and on life? I thought I did then too. I really thought that they were nice guys, and I could tell.
Was last seen at Lanier's
Wow.
Hardware in Lexington, North Carolina, where she worked on May 30th of 1987. She worked for a brief period before failing to return after her lunch break.
It wasn't until, you know, I started, you know, studying serial killers and murderers and wondering how their minds work, when I started to realize that, you know, and not just serial killers, just with my mother. I think maybe it started with her, that I could live with somebody my entire life, well, till I was, okay, half the time. I stayed with my mom half time. I'd stay with her during the day, and I'd go back to my grandmother's at night. But being said, I've known her my whole life, and I truly don't know her. What I thought I knew, I didn't. I was completely off kilter with that whole situation. I think. I still don't know if that's true. That's how clueless I can be about my mother. Now, my mother, she really upsets me because, yes, I totally feel that as a child, she chose a man over me, and she did. As I got older, I realized that she knew what was happening and that she would leave the room while he had me under the sheet on the couch in his underwear, and I was a little girl. Now, what mother does that? But she told me later in life, and not that long ago, that he manipulated her too. Oh, I'm sorry, and that's one thing I do know about myself. I don't have kids. One reason being is that I don't know that I would have ever trusted any man with my child, even their own father. I would have always been looking for signs. It would have drove me crazy. I would have always been watching my child. I did it with my goddaughter, and I almost convinced her that her uncle was doing something to her when I guess he wasn't. But I thought somebody was, and I kept questioning her, and eventually she told me what I guess I wanted to hear. And then told me later on as she got older that never had happened, and I just felt really bad, really terrible. Anyway, I just have a hard time trusting men with young girls. It used to be with children. I don't believe that every man out there would harm or want to have sex with a child per se under 12 years old. But I do believe that these young girls that are 13, 14 years old, they look older, and I do believe that a lot of men out there, and I almost be willing to say most men out there, that's my opinion, would at least want to do something with them. Maybe they might have the self-control not to. And sometimes I wonder about that too, and it's not right. It's not right. Society has changed a lot since, the 1900s, but back then, I look at nature and I say a 12-year-old girl has a period. Why? Why does a 12-year-old girl have a period? She has a period. Why? Because she's meant to have a baby, right? And back then, a young girl would marry an older man because I guess a young boy couldn't take care of a wife and a baby. So it was common for a 14-year-old girl to marry a 30-year-old man and have children. But it's not like that anymore. We have changed the rules, and because of that, people have to change accordingly. So I do think that these men may have inside these feelings, and maybe it's not wrong to have the feelings, but they know that in the society and the way things are now, it's wrong to act on that, because 12-year-old girls aren't the same as they were in the 1900s. They were more like women then. They're little girls now, even though they act grown up and look grown up. I see some now that it's like, oh my God, wow. They look, I mean, when I was 12, I looked 12, I was a gangly, clumsy little girl, and now I see 12, 13-year-olds that look like they're 20, even younger. Like, look at these little girls they put in these pageants. Why do you want to dress your little girl up to look like some fucking Playboy model? And then wondering why are these men fucking, you know what I mean? God, come on. And then in these little dance troupes, some of these little girls, they got them dancing like, I didn't do moves like that when I was a stripper. It's like, come on. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about something. That woman that got convicted for manslaughter for buying her kid that gun. Okay, now Yeah, that kid did not need a gun. He was already showing signs, and I don't remember how old he was, but you can teach a teenager to respect guns. I respected guns. I used to hunt with my grandpa ever since I was a little kid. We would go rabbit hunting, and I remember being really young and having to stand behind me while I shot the shotgun, and because the kickback would have knocked me to my ass, and my grandmother being so mad because I'd come home with bruises on my shoulder. But I was taught how to handle guns and how to respect guns. You try to think, look at all these school shootings and stuff like that. I mean, my whole life growing up, there was a gun, a pistol in a shoebox, or not a shoebox, a cigar box, right there on my grandma and grandpa's dresser. No lock on it, no nothing, not even nothing sitting on top of it. I could have at any time opened that up and took that gun and played with it, whatever. I never thought about it. Never came to mind to, like, hey, I'm going to take the gun to school today. Never crossed my mind to get it out and wave it around and shoot a friend or something, you know what I mean? So anyway, I've owned guns up until the cops told me I couldn't own guns anymore. And that wasn't because I was irresponsible with one. I had them in my house in a locked box, but I decided to have a raid on my house because I was selling pills, and they took my guns, and now I'm not allowed to have a gun. Now, that really bothers me because I am a responsible gun owner, and I do feel that I have the right to. I'm a woman who lives alone, and I feel unsafe here at times. I really do. I watch these I Survive shows too much, and there's always one about a woman waking up, and there's some strange man in the house. Now, I guarantee that if I have a knife and I go like this man's probably going to grab my arm and, probably turn it around on me. No, if I got a gun and I'm like, see here, I'm gonna blow your brains out, guarantee. Because when I did have a gun, I did have it near me when I slept, not where someone else could see it, but a lot of times I would have it underneath the couch where I slept, somewhere where somehow I could have got a hold of it at some point, I hope. And anyway, it just made me feel safe to have it, and I don't like the idea of not having one. I really don't, because I guarantee that somebody that comes in here probably will have a knife or a gun, or otherwise be able to overpower me. I am not the badass that I think I am. Yeah. Especially not now that I'm getting older and I've had a broken neck and a broken shoulder, and I just not know. I'm not a fighter, never was, but I've had to fight. Got my ass kicked a lot, but that's okay. My grandpa always, beat it into my head that I was no granddaughter of his if I walked away from a fight. And even as a little kid, when he would tell me to go outside and tell those kids to get their asses moving off the sidewalk in front of our house, the first time when I had said, no, I don't want to, and he had said that, you're not my granddaughter then, and he made me feel so ashamed, so to the point that I can't back down from a fight. You might as well kill me, because I just can't give up. I will just keep going and going until I tire you out and you finally give up, or you kill me. People say I was a crazy psycho for that, but why don't you just give up, Shannon? I can't. I just can't. My pride won't let me. My pride will kill me one of these days. But I'm still here. I really honestly thought I'd be dead before I was 30. And that was even before I ever tried drugs. I guess because people said that. Because I was a reckless person. I was a cutter. I was, I just did things that would have gotten a lot of people hurt. Never a bungee jumper or anything like that, but I did like to drive fast and ride fast and stuff like that. And yeah, ride around with men that I didn't know. Hitchhiking across the USA. Yeah, I saw one of them I Survived the other day, a young girl doing that exact same thing, and this old man picked her up, and she ended up with both of her arms cut off and thrown off a 30-foot bank to her death, but she didn't die. She managed to climb her way up that hill and get to the road with no arms, the first car that passed by her, of course there were no cell phones back then, but I mean, and I think they just drove by. But I'm wondering, what are they thinking? Here's this person, this girl that's naked, and she has no arms, and she's full of blood, and she just walked up out of the woods. What would I have thought? I would have stopped. That's what I think I would have done. And, at that point, if some guy would have been hiding in the bushes, I would probably have ended up with no arms myself, but I would have stopped. It's just the kind of person I am, I guess.
Authorities also reported that they recovered a sweet potato.
I would at least went to the first house that I could have and knocked on the door and sent somebody to help this girl. This girl went through hell.
Shooter used a potato as a makeshift silencer when fatally shooting his victim. Recently, with advances in DNA technology,
I watched those survives, all those women. They went through hell. Sometimes
it was then discovered that DeVaris Hampton's DNA
I can't stop talking long enough to hold my head in.
In addition to the
Sometimes at the hands of someone that they knew and loved, the father of their children, can be just as ruthless as a stranger. That one woman, he was the father of her children, and he beat her, he slit her throat, he put her in a big Tupperware type tub and with a lid on it and threw it in the back of his truck, and then, oh God, then that goes to show you just don't know people. That one woman who, somebody broke into her house in a gorilla suit, really happened, and this man beat her, what he thought was, to death with a metal tire iron or whatever he had, bat, and left her for dead, and she survived. And her husband got on the news, and her husband by her side, we want to find out who did this to my wife, blah blah blah. Well, it was him. He did it. Didn't expect her to live, and then stood by her side with tears in his eyes, vowing to find out who did this to his beloved wife. And that's what I mean. You just don't know who's sitting next to you. You could have kids with him. You could be married to him for 30 years. Dennis Rader was married to his wife for 30 years. They had a daughter who was, almost 30 years old. Loved her father. He was a wonderful father. He was a church pillar of the community. Went to church. Meanwhile, how many women was he strangling and having sex with after they were dead? Sometimes long after they were dead. He'd go back out and visit the body long after. I think that was Dennis that did that. Wow. And they had no clue. No clue. Not one tiny fucking sign. And that's what I say about this felony shit. Because it seems like the most fucked up people are the ones that have such a clean record and such pillars of the community, because they have to work really hard at hiding in plain sight. Because they are so fucked up that they compensate by just being overly normal. So remember that when, people fill out applications, Huh. Okay, that was what I had to say for the day. See ya.